What's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another episode of After the Buzzer, the show where I recap the NBA games from the night. And this is Christmas edition. We're going to be going ahead and recapping the 5 Christmas Day games that were played yesterday. And if you ask me, it was probably the weirdest NBA Christmas I at least have ever experienced. You had star players completely forgetting how to play basketball, role players having the best game of their lives, NBA Christmas records being tied and set all over the place, and just some fun basketball in between. It was an all-around pretty good NBA Christmas, I would say, but very, very strange. So we're going to go ahead and break that down in this video, but first, leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos, and as always, I'd love to hear your takeaways down below in the comments. Let's go ahead and kick things off with probably my most anticipated game of the night, in Suns versus Mavericks. This was for a number of reasons. Number one, these two teams don't like each other. They've had a rivalry developing over the past few years, and even though the rosters have changed drastically since that Game 7 embarrassment that the Mavericks gave the Suns a few years ago, it still feels like every time these two teams play, there's some kind of beef between Devin Booker and Luka, or in this game, Devin Booker and Grant Williams are talking smack to each other. Just something always seems to happen in these matchups. Luka Doncic loves destroying the Phoenix Suns, so I was expecting a big game from him. Devin Booker and Kevin Durant needed to put together great performances to help the Suns bounce back from this terrible skid they've been on. I was expecting a really close game, and for a lot of it, it was close. The Mavericks started off up big, and then the Suns battled all the way back to being really close, or I think might have even taken the lead in the third, fourth quarter, and then at the end, the Mavericks were just too much. The Suns fell apart, mainly because of Luka Doncic. You know how I said he loves to destroy the Suns? Might have been his best game against the Suns, and the best game on NBA Christmas by far in this one, tying the third most points ever scored in a Christmas Day game with 50, 5 rebounds, 15 assists, which feels like it has to be close to some type of record, 4 steals and 3 blocks on 60% shooting, also tying the Christmas record with 8 3-pointers made in this game. He was unbelievable. If you want to talk about an MVP statement game, this was one of those from Luka Doncic. He's truly one of the most unstoppable talents we have in the league, and one of the most unstoppable forces we've seen in the league in a very, very long time. It didn't matter who the Suns threw at him. I know the Suns aren't a great defensive team, but he's been doing this entire season, and he really likes to take advantage of these matchups where nobody can guard him. He was hitting step back threes, these super deep threes, attacking downhill, finishing around the rim, diming up his teammates. Luka did everything for the Mavericks in this game. He's an offensive engine almost unlike anything we've ever seen in the league, and I find it so funny that there's a couple teams that he decides to just turn it up to 11 against. The Clippers are one of those teams. The Suns are absolutely one of those squads, and he just made them look silly out there. Even though the Mavericks have some flaws as a team, it still feels like every time they've got Luka out there, they've got a chance to beat anybody on any given night. He's that type of talent, and in this game, he hit 10,000 career points, the fastest active player to do so. If there's anybody in the league right now who's going to end up breaking LeBron James' all-time scoring record, it's going to be Luka. I don't think anybody does do it, but Luka's the one guy who even has a remote chance. On the other side of this game, you had the Phoenix Suns, who, like I said earlier, have been on an awful stretch recently. I just dropped a video talking about how terrible they've looked recently, and it continues to pile up for them. Before this game even started, reports were coming out from Woj that Kevin Durant is frustrated with the Phoenix Suns, that Bradley Beal hasn't been healthy, that they're not getting wins, and I feel like you're starting to see that on the court between Devin Booker, who after this game stormed back to the locker room immediately, didn't really shake anybody's hands. Not that he seems to like the Mavericks very much, so I'm not surprised, but he was off the court immediately. There were multiple moments where you heard visible frustration and conversation between the guys on the Suns.
Pace, and Luka gets the land.
Aren't you running back? Turn the ball over, no run back.
Which makes sense. They were supposed to be a championship contender, and they're now under 500 after this loss. It was an embarrassing loss for them, mainly because their stars didn't really show up. Devin Booker had 20 points and 10 dimes, but shot just 6 of 14 from the field. Kevin Durant had 16, 8, and 7, but 6 turnovers, 4 of 11 shooting. Neither one of them were particularly aggressive. It didn't feel like they were really ready to take on Luka in this matchup. Luka outscored the two of them by himself and nearly outdimed them as well. He was easily the best player on the court tonight. It wasn't even close. The best two players for the Suns were Grayson Allen and Chimezie Metu, who looked like they space jammed away Devin Booker and Kevin Durant's talents. Because Grayson Allen had 32 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists with 8 threes, tying the record alongside Luka Doncic for the most threes in a Christmas Day game. He looked like the real Devin Booker out there. Then you've got Chimezie Metu, who puts up 23 points and 19 boards. That's a career high, nearly a 20-20 game on 9 of 18 shooting. They were the Suns' best two players tonight. Their stars really didn't show up. This is what I'm talking about with Christmas being being weird. On one side, you've got Luka Doncic, the biggest star in the game at this point, dominating. On the other side, you've got Chimezie Metu and Grayson Allen trying to carry the Suns to a win. It didn't make any sense. The Suns, like I mentioned, fall to a game below 500. They can't get anything to work, and they again fall victim to the Mavericks, who seem to just have their number, Luka Doncic in particular. And hey, if the Suns don't really figure things out by the trade deadline, with the rumors we're hearing from Woj about Kevin Durant and there being frustrations in the Suns locker room, things could get very interesting over there in Phoenix. Speaking of stars not showing up, let's talk about Sixers versus Heat, because two stars literally did not show up. No Joel Embiid, no Jimmy Butler because of different injuries, which was unfortunate. I was really looking forward to those two guys facing off against each other, but even still, you had Tyrese Maxey, you had Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo, the Heat of a bunch of fun role players. Kelly Oubre and Tobias Harris have the capability of going off. I was still expecting a fun game, and this was a close one. The Heat got a big lead. The Sixers battled back, made it really close towards the end of this game because the Heat love to go ahead and blow leads in the third and fourth quarter. They're one of the best teams in the league at doing that, but they usually do still come out with the win like they did in this one, mainly because Tyrese Maxey forgot how to play basketball. You think with no Joel Embiid, he'd go out there and go crazy. Instead, puts up just 12 points on 4 of 20 shooting. He was missing layups, wide open threes. He was missing free throws. Couldn't buy a bucket whatsoever. It was just a game where it felt like he got the yips in this one. He's perfectly fine. The Heat were also just playing some frustrating physical defense. He wasn't getting calls, getting frustrated. It happens when you're playing a team like the Heat who are just really, really good. And the guy that maybe took Tyrese Maxey's talents in this game was Jaime Jacquez, who has been unbelievable this season, but had the best game of his career on Christmas. 31 points, career high in that regard, 10 rebounds. Only one of like 4 or 5 rookies, I think the broadcast was saying, who have ever done that on Christmas. Shot 11 of 15 from the field. He's been amazing so far. I knew when the Heat took him, he was going to be good. He felt like the most Heat pick ever. It felt like they were going to turn him into a really good player from day one, but he's exceeded my expectations. He's been one of the biggest reasons why the Heat are better than I thought they were going to be, and it feels like he's going to be a star in this role for years to come for the Miami Heat. He's got this Jimmy Butler type game where he's got this great pump fake. His footwork is some of the best in the entire league, not just amongst rookies. Jaime's really good. The Heat get away with it again. Bam Adebayo also at 26, 15, 5, and 3. Hero, the other guard I thought would ball out, shot just 32% from the field because of course he did. Duncan had 16 points and 5 threes. On the Sixers side, Oubre and Tobias tried to carry the Sixers. Oubre had 25, 7, and 3, hitting some of the most absurd threes I've ever seen, which is typical for Kelly Oubre. I feel like every time he takes an absurd shot, it's just going to fall. Tobias Harris had 27, 7, and 6. He's been good. And then Mo Bamba, the best big on the Sixers tonight, 18 points and 6 rebounds on 88% shooting. He was drilling threes, playing great defense. I don't know what got into Mo Bamba. Maybe he just took Joel Embiid's powers for the night, but this game was super, super strange. The Heat do end up coming out with a win. They continue to play really, really well in the season, and a Heat video is probably coming soon. Meanwhile, over in Nuggets versus Warriors, you've got the reigning champions facing off against the Warriors, who have finally kind of found their stride. I thought it was going to be a Jokic versus Steph Curry masterclass duel, and instead, it was mostly a battle between Jamal Murray and Andrew Wiggins. Wiggins had one of the better games of his season, which has been really bad so far. 22 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists. Scored around half of the Warriors' points in the fourth quarter. Did everything he could to get them back in this game, but ultimately was not enough, mainly because of Jamal Murray, who had 26 points, 10 of 18 shooting. He's a big game player. Every time the Nuggets get in some moment where they are on a big stage and need to get a win, Jamal Murray usually steps up. Meanwhile, Steph Curry shot 7 of 21 from the field, 3 of 13 from deep, just couldn't buy a bucket most of this game. Klay Thompson was 3 of 12, and Jokic put up a seemingly good stat line of 26, 14, and 8, but shot 4 of 12 from the field and went 18 of 18 from the line, which of course has started a bunch of free throw discourse on NBA Twitter. Steve Kerr after the game was talking about how officiating's gotten bad, they're getting drawn in by guys foul baiting, and how if he was a fan, he wouldn't have watched the second half of the game. And I do agree, officiating was kind of rough in this one. Jokic was getting a bunch of soft calls in this one, but also there were sometimes he was genuinely getting fouled. Part of me feels like it was a bit of a reaction to those pictures that were going down a couple of days ago on NBA Twitter of Jokic being all bloodied on his arm and on his jersey, because typically Jokic does not have a good superstar whistle. Like, he doesn't get the calls a lot of guys do. Same thing with Steph Curry. So I don't know. It was just a weird game, which again is kind of a theme with this Christmas. MPJ had 19 and 10 with 4 blocks. Aaron Gordon had 16 and 10. It was an ugly one, but the Nuggets do pick up a win. Celtics Lakers was one of the more normal games of the night, but there was still some strange stuff going on. Mainly Jayson Tatum and LeBron James both really struggled in this game. LeBron 16 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists on 5 of 14 shooting, one of his worst games of the season, which of course comes just the game after he dropped a 40-piece on almost perfect efficiency, it felt like, against my Oklahoma City Thunder, because of course that happens. Jayson Tautm, 25, 8, and 7, but shot 6 of 15 from the field, couldn't buy a bucket for a lot of this game. Another guy who got to the free throw line a lot. But the Celtics are extremely deep, and they end up getting this one pretty comfortably by the end of things, even though the Lakers did take a fourth quarter lead, mainly because they've just got one of the craziest starting fives I've ever seen. Porzingis had 28 and 11, Derek White 18 points, 2 rebounds, 11 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, Drew 18, 7, and 7, Jaylen Brown 19, 5, 2, and 3. This team is completely stacked. They've got so much talent. I think they're 15 and 1 when their whole starting lineup is healthy. And it makes sense because they've got 5 guys who are probably all all-star caliber players in that starting unit. Derek White all-star discourse is really picking up on Twitter. And while I don't think he'll end up making it because there's so many great guards out there in the East, he does bring that all-star type of impact to this team. His defense, his playmaking, his shot making. He's truly one of the more unheralded heroes of this Celtics squad. And yeah, shout out to Brad Stevens for building an unbelievable team. Lakers did what they could, but the Celtics are just very clearly better. The Celtics are clearly the best team in the league right now, if you ask me. Anthony Davis dominated with 40 points, 13 rebounds, and 4 assists. Just not enough from LeBron James and the rest of the supporting cast, and rumors continue to circulate. The Lakers might be looking for a third star or some type of trade around the deadline, which wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. And finally, and probably the most normal game of the day, it was Bucks versus Knicks, the game that started off the whole slate. The Knicks led for almost this entire game, mainly because of Jalen Brunson, who is insane. 38 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists, 5 of 28 shooting. It's crazy to me how much I hated the contract when the Knicks signed to it a couple of years ago. I thought it was a big overpay. And as good as Brunson was, I thought it really didn't bring them at all to the next level. But instead, he's done exactly that. He's one of the best guards in the Eastern Conference, trying to make a case to be a starter in the All-Star game. Even though I don't think he'll quite get there, Jalen Brunson will 100% be an All-Star, and he absolutely should, or it's a robbery. For the Bucks, they just don't really have any perimeter defense. Pretty much everybody in the Knicks torched them in this game. RJ Barrett had 21, Randall had 24, quickly had 20. Malik Beasley as your primary perimeter stopper isn't going to work. I think the Bucks are really good. I just worry so much about that defense by the time you get to the playoffs and you're facing a squad like Boston in a series. How are you going to consistently get stops? They did do great things offensively. This was a really high-scoring game. Giannis had 32, 13, 6, 1, and 2. Dame had 32 points and 8 dimes. Like, their stars showed up. They just couldn't seem to stop the Knicks at all, who have a lot of depth. They're really, really good. And Brunson is the head of that snake, a guy that a few years ago I thought was massively overpaid, now has one of the best contracts in the league. And yeah, those are my thoughts on the Christmas Day games. Let me know down below in the comments what your thoughts and takeaways were. Real quick, I want to note a couple of things I wish they would fix about Christmas Day. Number one, bring back the Christmas Day uniforms. I don't know why they ever got rid of those. They were heat, and they made it feel like a special occasion. Got a lot of nostalgia for those, so please actually bring those back, Nike. And then also, I wish they were able to kind of flex around some of these matchups. I thought for the most part they were pretty good, but it would have been cool if like the Timberwolves got a chance to play on Christmas as one of the best teams in the league at this point. But of course, it's all set in stone at the beginning of the season, so it leads to some matchups that aren't as good as I feel like they possibly could be. Just kind of a note, would love to see if they could wait until like a month until the season to actually schedule who's on Christmas. They did some of that with the in-season tournament this year, so I don't know why they couldn't do that with one of the biggest days of the NBA calendar year. But yeah, I think overall Christmas was pretty fun. Let me know again what your thoughts were down below in the comments. I appreciate you watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.